Hi FlossTube, my name is Grace. I'm the Paisley Stitcher here on FlossTube as well as on Instagram. Welcome to my channel. Today is Saturday, March 30th, 2024, and it is actually a gloomy, rainy day in Southern California. The lighting's a little off, but we'll get through it, and I'm loving the rain. Today, I want to share with you my oldest WIP, which is over 40 years old. I don't think I'm ever going to finish it, but I had to really dust it off. I want to show you that. I have 3 finishes so far in 2024. So excited about those. I'll share those. And I thought we'd do a WIP parade. I never got to one towards the end of the year. So let's do a WIP parade. And I have about 21 or 22 WIPs to show you today. That's what I'm admitting to, how many WIPs I have. And then I have a parade of patterns from the Scarlet Letter that I want to share with you that are recent acquisitions. And I have all kinds of other good stuff, plans and haul. I have some market haul too that I want to share. But before we get to me sharing any stitching, I just want to say many thanks to Karen and Trisha. If you watched my last FlossTube number 9, it was so much fun. And I am starting a new series that is called FlossTuber for a Day. And Karen and Trisha were my first FlossTubers for a day. We had so much fun. And if you haven't watched it, I hope you'll go back and watch that FlossTube. It's FlossTube number 9. They are such talented ladies. Their stitching is beautiful, amazing, and they're really funny. I had so much fun filming that FlossTube, so I hope you'll enjoy that one if you haven't seen it already. All right, so I dusted off my oldest WIP. This is from 1983, and it's Waikiki Beach by Janice Maddox Baldwin of Designs Unlimited. I paid $4.95 for this pattern back in 1983. And I don't think it's hand charted, but I want to show you. Those of you that have been stitching a long time, this is how patterns used to come. And maybe I have to be careful. I don't want it to fall apart. Here we go. Okay, so this is patterns on the other side. I'm not going to show it to you, but this is how they came. All one big page. I also bought needles at the same time for 69 cents. Okay, here it is. This is my oldest WIP from 1983. It is on probably 16 count Aida with the obligatory masking tape around the edges. And that's as far as I got. And I don't think I'll ever go back to it because what's left is all blue sky. And I think I just got really bored with it. I was living in Hawaii at the time when I worked on this project, and I put it aside and I haven't touched it since. So even, I was probably 18 or 19 when I started this. And even then, I liked big, awesome projects. Now you can see, look at how much sky. I still have all that sky left to do. I don't think it's getting done. But there you go. That is one old WIP. All right. So finishes. I've had 3 finishes since my last FlossTube, and I'm so excited. All right. The first one, ATS 1871. This is a sampler, a Saxony sampler by GGR. I've showed this before. I've showed it at some retreats I've been to at the attic lately, but here it is. It is all finished. Now, look at all the bands at the bottom. And look at those motifs. I stitched this on 40 count Thornfield by Needle and Flax. using the called for Gentle Arts and Simply Shaker overdyed cotton floss. I just am so pleased with this. I think what I like about the German Saxony samplers is that there's no border. You finish a motif and you feel accomplished. And there's so many motifs in there. And I also love the bands. The bands are really fun to stitch. So again, this is by GGR, and it is ATS 1871. That is my first finish of 2024. The next one, I've been working on this one a long time, and I'm so thrilled that it's finished. This is Jane Hopkins by Hands Across the Sea. I stitched this on 40 count light hazelnut by XJU Design, using the called for Avera Soie Soie silk. And this is my first time putting in a lot of satin stitches in the border. There's a ton of satin stitches in that kind of that light aqua blue tealy color. I am so proud and pleased with this finish. I just love it. It is a gorgeous sampler, and yes, it's a lot of solid stitching and sometimes confetti, but it is so worth it when you have the finished product. It's just a beautiful, beautiful sampler. Jane Hopkins, 1875 by Hands Across the Sea. Okay, my next finish, I just finished this morning. And this is by Hands Across the Sea, and it's Mary Wigglesworth. Now, I stitched Mary on 40 count marbled pointer by XJU Design, using the called for Avera Soie Soie silk. That band at the top is my favorite. That would look so good on a drum. It's all cross stitched. There is some over one in the verse, just a little bit. What attracted me are the reds and the greens and the purples. And that's Mary Wigglesworth, 1812 by Hands Across the Sea. So those are my three finishes. Really, really pleased with those. All right, next up, I have done some starts since my last FlossTube, and I thought I'd share them with you. If you could see my table, I am covered in stuff here. All right, so the first one I want to show you is Greet Rathmans. Okay, and I got, Greet is in a museum in Hamburg, the original, but I purchased this from Sabine at European Reproduction Samplers. I believe that's the name of the website. So you can see this is a beautiful, beautiful piece of work. I wanted to do something a little bit differently, and so I'm stitching this. What's different is I'm stitching it on chalkboard, and I want to show you what I've got so far. I love all the motifs, the angels. I have to tell you, my sister looked at this. She said the angels have big badonkadonks. And she said, is that how they stylized them then? I don't know, but I thanked her for her comment. Anyway, there it is. Now, there are a lot of colors in this, right? And I'm using all DMC. So here are the called for DMC colors on my favorite floss drops, these are floss beans from Stitch Folk. Hysterical. They're my favorite. Anyway, here's the colors. What attracted me was the red, of course. But there's not that much red in what I've done so far. And so I had a consult with my friend Nell. She's Pale Fire Stitcher on Instagram. She is great with color. She is fearless at changing colors on patterns. And I'm like, what else can I add? And so we went through some colors, and remember I was saying I thought it needed more red. And so I'm gonna try now, and I'm gonna do this on my own, which typically I don't go outside of the box. I don't color outside of the lines. I stitch as called for typically, but I'm gonna add these colors, which I think are beautiful on this linen. So then this will be the color palette. So I've got to put my big girl panties on and decide where I'm going to add those colors in, and just allow myself to play with it and not put any limitations on myself. I don't always have to follow the rules. Okay, so that's great. And then I also started another German Saxony sampler. This is SDW. Hey, Max, no bark. SDW, a German band sampler, circa 1710. And what attracted me to this initially, so many things, because I do love German samplers, but the church. I don't think I've seen a church on any of the German band samplers. And this is by the Scarlet Letter. Here's my start. All right. By the way, Barry at Stitch Folks started this with me. I am stitching this on 45 count Thai iced tea by Legacy Linen. And I did a conversion from the Avera Soie, Soie de J, and DMC, and I converted to 103. So these are, you could say these are the called for colors. I'm not changing any of the colors. And I just, oh, so beautiful. Okay, so now we get to the letters. And this is not the entire length that I've stitched, but look at that one band. Oh, I just love it. Alphabets, look at the peacock. So many things to love about this sampler, and of course, it's going to be huge. It's over 700 stitches long. Again, that is SDW by the Scarlet Letter. And then last but not least, as far as things I've started since our last visit, I started Anne Tong Uffendell. I have a little start, and I'll show that to you. I'm looking for my notes. Here she is. And I'm stitching her on 40 count Old Mushroom by XJU Design using the called for Avera Soie, Soie de J. It's back here on my frame, and this is my big start. It's a start, and I'm stitching this with my friend Kay, and Kay is much farther along than I am, and I want to get back to this. That is such a beautiful sampler, and there's just not enough hours in the day. Okay, let me move this aside, and then we're going to start a WIP parade. I don't know about you all, but I love a parade. Okay, here we go. This one's been calling to me. And I think I'm gonna have to pick it back up again soon. This is the Shores of Hawk Run Hollow. And yes, I do stitch other things besides samplers. Samplers are my favorite. Here's the Shores of Hawk Run Hollow. And I'm not making any changes. I'm stitching this on 36 count weeks dye work in the colorway Straw using the called for DMC. And I'm using 2 strands of DMC on this 36 count. This is so much fun to stitch. Each box feels like quite an accomplishment, and some of them are, that bottom one is almost full coverage, but they're just so much fun, and I am itching to get back to this one. All right. This one I haven't touched in a really long time. And it's Spring Quakers by Rosewood Manor. And I think I haven't picked it up because I finished Autumn Quakers. It's framed and hanging on my wall over there. And then I picked this up right away. And I think I didn't leave enough of a gap in between. They're similar. They're not the same, but similar. And so I've been thinking about this one again. Now I am stitching this on 28 count Valor by Picture This Plus. So I started this before I started stitching on 40 and 46 count linen. And I'm stitching this with a silk conversion from the attic, and I'll show you the silks in a moment. But this is another fun one because you finish a motif and you do feel accomplished, and that linen is gorgeous. And I should pick it up again because I would fly on the 28 count, wouldn't I? Okay, so here's all the silks. And it's all Belle Soise by Classic Color Works. Look at those. Oh, gorgeous. You're gonna hear me say this. Gorgeous, why am I not stitching this? Why haven't I gotten back to this? The next one, Rachel Howells by the Scarlet Letter. Rachel Howells, 1856. I am stitching Rachel on 46 count Dirty Teacup by Needle and Flax. Using NPIs. This is my first time using NPI silks, and I love them. Look at that border. You may remember, if you saw my FlossTube from last week, Karen Lynch showed her progress on Rachel Howells, and we were both like, why are we not stitching on this? Here are the beautiful NPIs. It's a beautiful, beautiful sampler. Now here's something I know I haven't touched in probably a year to a year and a half. It's by Long Dog Samplers, and it's Pandemic. And you may recall during lockdown, Long Dog Samplers made this available to us for free online. Just download it, which I absolutely did right away. And here is my progress. Oh. Why am I not working on this? Okay, I am stitching this on 46 count Cocoa by Fiber on a Whim. And I'm using Rouge Silk, purchased on Etsy from Mrs. Sadis Silk. So there it is. I bought a whole hank for Pandemic. Oh, this is so pretty. These colors together, I love them. Another one I want to get back to. I bought this fabric the very first time I went to the attic. I went to summer school in 2020. And that was my first trip to the attic, and you know how that goes if you've ever been there. Okay, my next one is also the Scarlet House, and it's a changed world. I'm stitching this, and unfortunately, I didn't write down the linen. All I know is it's a 46 count linen, and I'm using the called for 103 silks. I just love the colors. This one I take with me when I travel. It's not a BAP. It travels well. I'm keeping my bags and everything in order. All right, the next one is Modern Folk Embroidery, the Zimmerman coverlet. And I am stitching the Zimmerman coverlet on 40 count ancient by Picture This Plus. And I'm using Darling Blue Silk from Mrs. Sadis. So here's her logo. You can find her on Etsy, Mrs. Sadis. And this is Darling Blue. It's another one I want to get back to. It's been languishing way too long. Just like this one. This is Harbor Haven by the Bay Needle Art. This comes in 12 patterns, and this is what it looks like once you've stitched all 12. Now I'm using 32 count Provence by Fabric Flare. 32 count, but I'm stitching it over 1 because I wanted it small. And there it is. So I'm just now starting, I believe, number 3. So I have the first 2 completed, and I'm starting on the 3rd pattern, and eventually we'll go to 12. This is a fabulous project. Why am I not working on it? All right, let me shuffle around a little bit here. I have 3 piles of WIPs. The next one is Long Dog Samplers, and it's Hoity Toity. Oh, just love this. And I haven't touched this in at least a year. Okay, I am stitching Hoity Toity on 36 count Antique White by Zweigart. And I started with the silk conversion. You'll see that at the bottom. And I decided partway through, I really preferred the DMC colors better. And so the top part is in the DMC. This is what I'm going to go with. I will have to take out some of my stitching down below. Fortunately, the black border is staying put. So it's really not that much that I have to take out. But that's a beautiful project. Hoity Toity by Long Dog. Next up is Sarah Rhimes, 1770. This was Queen of the May by Hands Across the Sea in 2022. And I am stitching Sarah on 46 count Morning Coffee by XJU Designs. And I'm using the called for 103 silks. Sometimes I do like to use the darker linen, and I feel like the color pops off of the linen more. This is such a pretty, pretty sampler. Okay. Here's another long dog. This is called Descending Order. This has been in my WIP pile for a long time. And I'm stitching Descending Order on 38 count Pale Lilac. Pale Lilac by XJU Design using the called for DMC. Oh, it's so pretty, those colors. When I look at all of this, I think I have no business starting anything else. I have so many beautiful projects just sitting there waiting to be completed. Okay, the next one is an antique sampler that I purchased and I'm reproducing it. Unfortunately, I haven't had time to go back and work on it. I've shown this before. It's Euphemia Mickey, I'm losing my place here, 1882. And if you look at the back, look at the colors this little girl chose. I showed this in one of my first few floss tubes, and I mentioned that I found Euphemia and her family on Ancestry, and they immigrated to Canada. I purchased this from an antique dealer in Canada, so I can't help but wonder if Euphemia took this with her as she sailed across the Atlantic Ocean to Canada. So I have charted it, and now I'm stitching it and selecting colors. Here's my progress so far. I have to tell you, choosing colors is not easy, and kudos to the designers who do it well. It is not easy, and I'm kind of thinking I don't like that dark blue where the MNO are, so I may take that out and put a different color in there. But it is so fun seeing this come into this. It's really gratifying, and I'd like to get back to that. The next step is Sunset, and this is by Carolyn Manning Designs. I'm stitching Sunset on 40 count even weave, and I haven't touched this in a very long time, unfortunately. I'm using the called for DMC. It's really pretty. Love Carolyn Manning. Trying to make sure none of these piles tip over. All right, this one, this is a beautiful sampler. Hannah Sanderson, 1849 by Dutch Treat Designs. This is such a gorgeous sampler. And I am stitching Hannah on 40 count Old Stationery by Seraphim, using a silk conversion from the attic on the Aversois Soie. Okay, here we go. Here is my start. Such a pretty sampler. And I believe the cover has the antique, and this is reproduced. You can see I've started in the middle. I'm not going to say it. Why am I not stitching her? Right? Right. Here's the silks for Hannah Sanderson. Really pretty. Okay. This one has been in timeout for a very long time. And the reason is, let me show it to you first. And I know that Audrey and Laura are stitching this. Marie Louise Puree. What attracted me were the yellows and the reds and the greens. And I'm stitching I'm stitching Marie on 45 count jersey cream by Legacy Linen. I had never stitched on Legacy Linen before, and this linen is thicker, and it did take me a minute to get used to it. I'm using Legacy Linen on the SDW 1710 German Saxony sampler, and once I got going and got used to it, I love this linen. It is so nice to stitch on. And so Marie is no longer in timeout. See, I just have very little start, but I definitely want to continue stitching her now that I have experience on this really beautiful linen. Mary 395 by Hands Across the Sea. This is a Bristol sampler. Of course, it's the biggest Bristol sampler, I think, out there. I am stitching out on 40 count light hazelnut by XJU Design using, here we go, using the Aversois silks, and the color 499. I'm using 103s, and the color red of 499, and I started in the middle, and I have it upside down. Started in the middle so I could do some motifs and then go up and do some alphabet. This is another one I would love to get back to. All right. Next up is The Rose and the Giant Pear, 1888. This is by Hands Across the Sea. I bought this, and Jean at the attic said, do this on 56 count. You can stitch on 56 count. I'm not the only person that she's told that to. And so here's my start. Not very big. Not very big, right? I am gonna go back to this. I'm doing 56 count creme brulee using the Aversois 103 silk. I'm gonna get back to this and stitch this on 56 count because it's gorgeous. I'm not giving up on that. Here's a Reflet de Soie, and this is called Entrelacs Bleu. And I Googled the translation, and it's Blue Tracery by Reflet de Soie. I'm stitching this on 40 count marbled pointer by XJU Design, and here is my measly, I have so much more to go on this. And I'm using the called for Soirée silk, but this is such a beautiful pattern. Look at that. So you can see I've got this ring right here. That's that. It's much bigger than the picture appears. Makes it look. It's not a little pillow. Here's another Reflet de Soie, Yvonne Leclerc, 1905. Look at that. A beautiful French sampler. And here is my progress. Look at the border, the peacock, the rooster. This is such a beautiful sampler. Rose Ada Featherstone. This is by Hands Across the Sea. It's Rose Ada Featherstone, 1894. This was an exclusive at Hobby House Needleworks. And so I kitted it up with Hobby House. And I'm using 46 count antique lace, let's see, by Seraphim. And I'm using the called for 103 silks. This has been a stop and go for me. And I think it's because I prefer warmer linen, and this one is on the cooler side. That's the only thing I can think of because it's a beautiful sampler and I love the colors. Next is Sarah Fletcher, 1841. And I'm stitching Sarah on 40 count sand dunes by Seraphim. Yes. And I'm using the called for Swadesh silk. This is such a pretty sampler. These are my colors. Sarah Fletcher. Ann Thomas, 1854 by Hands Across the Sea. Some of us know this as Walter the Pigeon. Now this is one I am wanting to get back to. I'm stitching this on 46 count Up in the Attic by Fox and Rabbit using the called for 103 silks. Look at this. Look at the level of detail on this beautiful sampler. It is stunning. Yes, it's got confetti. I don't mind confetti. Look at the results. Ugh. Truly, this is a stunning, stunning sampler. And I have one more WIP. So as I was preparing for the FlossTube today, I was getting everything together, and this particular sampler, Anne Lancic, 1843 by GGR. This particular sampler was still in my frame, and I took it out of the frame, and I'm really glad I did because I made a big, big mistake, I think. I'm stitching this on 40 count 90s Nirvana by Needle and Flax. Look at that beautiful linen. And I'm using a silk conversion from the attic. And the silk conversion includes Gumnut, Gloriana, Dinky Dyes, Belsois. Here's my start. Anybody see what I did wrong? Here's my piece of linen. I've got it going the wrong way. Oh my God. So this is where I started. It's at the bottom it's at the bottom part of my linen. I don't think I'm gonna count. No, I don't think it's gonna work. I'm gonna count it, but I think I started the wrong way. That's not the center. It should be this way. So I am so glad I took it out of the stand before I just kept working on it. So Anne's going to go in timeout for a little bit. We had words. Anne and I just need a break for a little bit. So plans. What have I got for plans? go. All right. So from Market, I think this is my favorite thing from Market. I saw this and immediately fell in love with it. It's from Summer House Stitch Works. It's the greatest of these, Faith. It's like a coverlet. I just love this. And something's happening because it's not a BAP, it's a small. And here's my start. I know it's small, but I started it and I can't wait to continue. I'm using 40 count XJU design, and I don't remember the color. I'm just using the called for DMC. And I believe there's 2 other pillows coming out eventually. Did it say that on the back? Where did I see that? Maybe I saw it online, but I just think that is such a beautiful pattern. Okay, here's what's been calling to me, and I have no business starting another hawk run until I finish the shores, excuse me, of Hawk Run Hollow. But there it is, the villages of Hawk Run Hollow. I've got it all kitted up with all the DMC. And I think why the hawk runs are calling to me is there's so many people on FlossTube doing the villages or the houses of Hawk Run or the shores of Hawk Run Hollow. And these are just beautiful pieces. Love them. So maybe I'll start that. I don't know. I'm definitely starting this one. This is Leela's Studios, Let Freedom Ring. Oh, isn't that amazing? So my friend Delnora, she brought this to Stitchy Group last time, and she said, I'm going to start this as a leap year Sal. And I asked her if I could join her because I have it all kitted up and ready to go. Now, we decided to stitch this after February 29th. She started it yesterday, which was March 29th. I'm going to start it today, but it's going to be our leap year Sal. We're going to work on it the 29th of every month for 4 years and see if we can get this thing done. I am going to stitch this on 40 count needle and flax Sleeping Bear. Now, the piece of Sleeping Bear that I have is a little bit lighter than some of the other ones I saw at the attic, but I think that it's gorgeous and it's going to look great. And I'm using the called for thread, which I believe is DMC and some overdyed. That I'm starting today. I'm also working on a smalls exchange for a retreat, and I will show that to you after I've given that. Yeah, so I have some haul I want to share with you. First up, Wendy from the Heart Needle Art. Wendy and I have met and visited at a lot of retreats, but we really got to visit for a much longer time at the Sampler Symposium. I'm such a huge fan. And she sent me 2 patterns. Look at this one. This is Dutch Red Flower Sampler from the Heart Sampler Reproduction. I'm like, oh, that is a must-have, a must-stitch for me. Look how pretty that is. And then she also sent me this sewing roll, and this was new, I believe, in January. It's NO 1796 sewing roll, and Wendy adapted it and stitched it. Look at this. How pretty is that? That's from the Heart Needle Art. Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate you sending me those. Also, I got this I received a while ago, and because I haven't filmed a FlossTube in a while, I wanted to show you this project bag that my friend Diane, who is Woodpecker's daughter, on Instagram, look at this beautiful bag she made me and sent me. So thoughtful. She always has great gifts at retreats too of handmade items. So thank you, Diane. I love it. All right, so shall we talk about haul? I'm running out of room here. Okay, before market, I picked this up. Somebody on FlossTube showed this, and this is from Shakespeare's Peddler. It's a French sampler, it looks like Delhomme, 1873. Look at these little pictures. There's a man with a train and a boat and these little scenes. And I saw it stitched up and it's beautiful. And then of course I had to get the cookbook from Market. This is chock full of not only recipes, but projects, free projects that are included in the book. Well worth the $10, $12. Kathy Barrick, huge fan of Kathy Barrick. And this is her market release, Vibrant Flowers. Oh, of course it's red. There's a big red house on there. And red flowers. I also picked up Little Robin Designs, Grace Gill, 1838. Now, of course, there's a sampler with the same first name as me, but also, okay, I like quirky. Look at the kitties. They've got whiskers. And then I thought this was a turkey, but I was corrected, and it's really a peacock, but this peacock has a crown and like platform shoes on. And then the griffins. How often do you see a sampler with a griffin on it? I know I laugh at some of the motifs, but this is a beautiful, beautiful sampler. It's from Little Robin Designs. Teresa Kogut always knocks it out of the park, right? And God Saw. This reminds me of a Rhode Island sampler. Oh, this is just so pretty. Love it. And from Cross Stitch Antiques, Emmeline Hotchkiss. This is a Canadian antique sampler from 1846. One of my friends actually owns this sampler, so I've seen it in person. It is beautiful, and I'm thrilled that Kathleen has reproduced it, and I can't wait to stitch it. Love the colors. And also from Cross Stitch Antiques, these are pattern books that were given out at Prince Albert's exhibition, 1851. And what's interesting to me is in these pattern books, there are many Bristol Orphanage sampler motifs. I just love these little pattern books, and I've started collecting some. I have some from Germany and from Portugal and Spain. And a couple from Seju antique pattern books. And they're so fun to look through. All right. So that is everything that I have to show you today. I am going to continue with FlossTuber for a day. In fact, I'll be filming one next weekend with one of my friends, so stay tuned for that. Also, since we last visited, I've talked to several people, I've purchased books, and I'm doing more research on the German Saxony samplers and what those motifs mean. So I can't wait to share that with you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.